Hey guys, Peach is starting a new series where she covers darker and or more serious topics on the channel. This is the first of the 5 starting episodes, and if it does good, then she may do more. There will be some graphic content included in the series, so if you're not into that, or if you are faint of heart, please click off or proceed with caution. She's currently sick, so Suika is doing the voiceovers for her. That's me, by the way. Hello, Internet. The next episode will be uploaded on August 25 of the year 2018. She wanted to do something that isn't usually talked about a lot in the first episode. Leave some comments and suggestions, and she will try to include the links to the particular video that I will be discussing in this episode. Without further ado, this is Suika, and you're watching Let's Analyze. Guinea Pig Devil's Experiment is the first film in the series. In this one, a group of men torture a young girl in many ways, or, as the Wikipedia puts it, graphic ways. I personally didn't find the film extremely graphic, but I might just be too desensitized for such things. The only part I would consider graphic is Needle. I wanted to watch A Clockwork Orange afterwards, and it's probably more graphic than that was. Before I delve into the film, I want to talk about the series and the controversy around it. Guinea Pig is a Japanese series of horror films from the 80s to 90s, so that's approximately from about 1985 to 1991. And these are live adaptations of Hideshi Hino's mangas, who is also the producer for the series. These films are constantly under investigation and controversy. The main controversy is around the fact these can be snuff films. In case you don't know, snuff films are pretty much films or movies where the torture or killing in the film actually happened. Nowadays, we don't hear about them much, but I know when my siblings and I were younger, they were pretty predominant. I think the last time snuff films were even mentioned nowadays would probably be Daisy's Destruction or American Horror Story Freak Show, where the German woman, sorry I forgot her name, that looks after them got her legs cut off in one before she left Germany. Now, Guinea Pig has been confirmed that all 6 of its films were fake, or they're not real snuff films, and most of the controversy surrounding the films just died. Another controversy around it is now because it was one of the 5,765 films and videographies found in the possession of Tsutomu Miyazaki, a Japanese serial killer famous for killing 4 young girls in the Saitama district of Tokyo in the late 80s. He was dubbed as the otaku killer since he blamed his slaying on violent anime, manga, and slasher films. Because of this, production of the series has halted in Japan, but you can still buy the DVDs in the States, Netherlands, the UK, and Austria. In 1991, the series came under fire again after everyone's favorite upstanding citizen, Charlie Sheen, reported his copy of the second film, Flowers of Flesh and Blood, to the FBI, who later confirmed Japanese police were right, and these were not snuff films. Now, one in particular that I watched is apparently the worst one, so it isn't my judgment for the entire series, but the first one. The film starts with this scrolling text in Japanese. I'll put it on the screen as I translate it as it goes. Several years ago, I obtained a private video under the title Guinea Pig. Its commentary said that it's a report of an experiment on the breaking point of bearable pain and the corrosion of people's senses. But it was in fact an exhibition of devilish cruelty, as 3 perpetrators severely abused a young woman. Note, guinea pig is defined as any experimental material. This gives off the feeling like VHS to me. Now, VHS came out many years after these were released, but that's essentially what this whole series feels like to me. This text is followed by some scenes of a girl trapped in a net in the middle of a forest. She is later revealed to be the subject of this tape, or the guinea pig, if you will. There is also a screen titled Summer 1980X. Now, we go into the first part of the experiment titled Hit. It's pretty self-explanatory. It shows the girl sitting in a chair, getting slapped for 20 minutes or so. She's tied down so she can't move, and then a guy in leather and latex gloves later takes off the gloves and wets her face, then slaps her again. This made a difference for some reason. Okay, back to being serious. They're smacking her. Numbers flash on the screen while that was happening, for what I guess is the number of hits she's taken. He then at some point put his gloves back on, which I don't see the point of because he only smacks her for 1 or 2 more times, then proceeds to deliver the rest of it with his leather belt. Around the time 100 pops on the screen, he says, "God, my hand hurts," and I somewhat felt bad for laughing. I also thought he was trying to break her jaw, since that's where about a lot of his hits were directed. After she's hit 100 times or so, he declares his hand hurts. Ironically, she is left on her own in the chair and she spits out blood that honestly looks like she had a period through her mouth, and we're met with another black screen. When I first saw this, I assumed that the black screens were to make us feel more anxious, but now I realize they just needed something for the jump cuts. I also felt this was going to be very boring when I first watched this, and I was somewhat right that it went too slow. You know that feeling when people carry out jokes too long? Or carry stories on forever? That's almost what it felt like. After the first few hits, I almost got bored. It was okay, yeah, but no, I'm not for it anymore. Also, I almost didn't feel bad for her because I could tell it was fake. It really felt fake. Especially since the actress herself was so bad. I could tell she wasn't really getting any of the hits. Now, because this was the 1980s, I'm not going to judge it too much technology-wise, but I will say the sound effects of the slaps were pretty off, and you can tell they were edited afterwards, so that's my take. Back to the actual film. After the black screen, we are met with, drumroll please, another black screen. Except this one has the Japanese character for kick, which is shoku, in case you're wondering. And I can already tell that this is going to be a constant theme throughout this film. Again, most of these are pretty self-explanatory. They take her into a room blindfolded and hands bound, and make her kneel when they are met with what I would consider the winner in the running for the worst acting ever. Again, this is the 1980s, and even if Japan is leader in the world for technological evolution, I am not going to judge the editing and the sound effects too harshly. I will, however, judge the acting with a passion. It's so bad, I can't even explain it. If people ever say porn stars are the worst actors, they clearly haven't ever seen this fucking film. Instead of kicking, they should have called this groaning and yelling, passive-aggressive insults at the fucking guinea pig. My favorite part of this section is when this guy in the back, don't worry, I'll put the clip in, is having a little dance with himself, while the other two are kicking the girl. They constantly told her to stand up, then they pushed her, which kind of pissed me off, because they're supposed to be kicking her, and apparently none of them got that memo, but whatever. After kicking and yelling at her for a good 5 or more minutes, they start asking if she's dead or asleep, and there is one scene from this where I had to pause so I could regain my composure. He yells while he's yelling, and he does his own little thing where he flails his arms and body, but his head stays still. Then they cut to his face, and he has these joyous, wonderful sunglasses on that you can only see in JGV, that makes it to where I honestly cannot take him seriously. Then they start pushing her in between them, and we are met with other shots like this one, which I mentioned above. They include yelling the same question at her while she just moans and tumbles. Then she knees her in the stomach and she falls to the ground, and we get another black screen. Again, I feel this section went on way too long, and I rated a -20 out of 10 on the graphic scale. Now, we are met with Claw, which I didn't get because all they really do is pinch her with a wrench of some sort. I did something similar to this afterwards to my own arm and was met with the same results. Nothing. I mean it. Pinched, but no more than if you got your finger pinched by the cupboard itself. I don't have much to say about this one, honestly. I text through it every time it comes on, and I also don't get the science behind it. It's almost like a filler for something. We are met with another black screen, and the word unconscious. And when I first watched this, I will admit I was not expecting this. And when I saw it, I laughed for a good 10 minutes. I'll just show you it, because I don't think you will even believe me if I explain it. Now, I decided to look into this, and to put this shortly, no. You cannot pass out from spinning in a chair, especially the way they're doing it, since they constantly take breaks. This is something scientists have looked into and studied for a long time, surprisingly. Dizziness is essentially a sensory overload in the brain. This is why if you close your eyes when you spin, you won't be dizzy. And if you are dizzy, it's only when you reopen your eyes. Now, you can throw up from extreme and or extended dizziness, but you can't pass out unless it's from the side effects of being dizzy. Throwing up leads to dehydration, which leads to lack of response, and so on and so forth. Now that's out of the way, and my morals are restored. I feel like this was another filler in the film that honestly didn't need to be included. That made it less graphic and almost comedic in its own little way. In fact, the only thing I really liked that made this different from the other scenes is the fact that the switch back and forth from her in a net to her in a chair at the beginning. Also, before the black screen, I like that he tells her it's too early for her to pass out when 100 is on the screen when she's moving and moaning, so she obviously didn't pass out. The next scene is sound, and I can't watch this part all the way through because the sound gives me panic attacks. But pretty much he forces her to listen to white noise through headphones for 10 minutes, though they say she listened to it for 20 hours. Before the black screen, she's seen drooling, and I think this is supposed to suggest that she's having a seizure, but I don't know. This is the shortest segment of the whole series. Now let me drop some scientific knowledge on you. This is something I've studied a lot, and I would like to say a little disclaimer before I go into this. Some of what I say for this part is taken into consideration that she is blindfolded and listening to isolated white noise, which can cause a great amount of damage if abused for a long period of time. White noise in general is good for some people and can be beneficial psychologically to most humans. I am not saying you will die or go insane if you listen to white noise. I'm talking about white noise being abused. Now that's out of the way, let me say this is a type of psychological warfare. This was used by the US government in World War II in order to torture prisoners of war. Now you can have a seizure if you endure an extreme amount of isolated white noise, but it isn't the most common side effect of it. You're more likely to get level 1 side effects if your senses are only cut off for 20 hours, since you don't experience level 2 or 3 until 48 to 72 hours of torture. If you don't know what it means, don't worry, I'll explain it. Level 1 side effects of torture are things that have a potential to go away and are not life-threatening. These are things that will occur in the first 24 of any experiment or trial ever. Dizziness, fatigue, loss of appetite, hallucinations, malice, coughing, drowsiness, weakness, blurred vision, headaches, dry mouth, and loss of balance are all level 1 side effects. Nowadays, medicine is more morally correct, so you won't see them listed in levels most of the time, but it's still on the same sort of scale, and as you go up in levels, or on the scale, they get more serious and life-threatening. Seizures are considered jumpers because they are confusing. It depends on the intensity of them if they are fatal or passable. They often jump between 2 and 4. Now that I've bored you to death, let me answer that this is something that can usually happen, but it doesn't happen within the amount of time she was given. Next is skin, where they tie her down and pull her hair out and pull her fingers off in unison. That's pretty much it. Nothing special. Again, this went on too long, and at the end of the scene, she's back in a net. Now is burn. Again, nothing special. She's sleeping on this table thing, and boiling water is poured onto her arms. This is a scene that I consider graphic, but you can tell the burns are fake, so it's not as graphic as it could have been. Now, according to Wikipedia, the highest you can get from boiling water is a 3rd-degree burn, which is severe and serious. Don't get me wrong, but they didn't make it seem like she got a 3rd-degree burn. Take it from someone who's had to go to the hospital from a burn before. That is not what a 3rd-degree burn looks like, especially since it cooled after 5 minutes, and it wouldn't have eaten through her skin until hours later. It still has to blister and scald before it can eat through. I know I'm probably being way too harsh on this one, but it feels like they weren't even trying, or maybe they were trying too hard at this point. Strap in, cause now we're to Worm, and we're almost done with the film. They basically pour a bunch of maggots on her while she's sleeping, mostly on her arm where she was burned, and on her face. They did this because maggots are decomposers, and they live off of eating the dead tissue of animals. The second to the last one is titled Animal Flesh, I think, and I am ashamed I spent 10 minutes searching for the translation on this character, and don't even think it's right. They pretty much throw a bunch of bloody chunks of something at her. My guess is it's flesh or liver? I don't even know at this point. Also at the end, they have what sounds like the dude from Naruto having an orgasm, and then breaking her hand with a mallet. Again, another filler. Nothing too scary. Finally, we have Needle. This was the only one that I would consider graphic. When I first watched it, I thought it was going to be like the rest of the film and decided to skip through it. But after I read the reviews, which mainly said it was the only part worth watching, I decided to reanalyze it. It starts off like the first scene, where she's tied to a chair in a small room, and there is a guy behind her preparing. Then, after he is done sharpening his X-Acto knife, he basically slices her hand open and blood pours out. Then her head is chained back, her eye is forced open, and the whole film flashes in little clips, and she dies after a needle is driven through her side. The eye twitches and the socket fills with blood, and before the eye pops, the screen cuts to a clip of the same net that has been referenced throughout the video, hanging in the forest, then a black screen. Then we get a wonderful scrolling text again. This time it says, "The details of this experiment were missing when I received the video, but the age, name, and information of the woman and 3 men in this video are currently under investigation. Then it closes with a black screen and guinea pig, followed by what I believe is the production company in blue letters.
Okay, so a few things. First, do I consider this graphic? No, at least not to me. I feel movies like Saw, the VHS series, and Final Destination are more graphic. Hell, House of Wax is more graphic and it had better acting in it. Second, as a lover of horror films, and specifically Japanese horror films in general, did this movie live up to the controversy around it? No. Now, I have taken into consideration most of the controversy around the Guinea Pig series is about Flowers of Flesh and Blood, and this is considered to be one of the worst ones in the series. But this was garbage, actually garbage. The acting was shitty, I find more gore in A Clockwork Orange or VHS, and overall, I rate the movie a 0 out of 10 on anything ever. Third, would I watch it again on my free time? Maybe? If I wanted to watch a more gory movie and not throw up, maybe. Probably not though, in all honesty. Fourth, is it the worst movie I've ever seen? The acting was shitty, the audio effects were off and or early. I in no way would buy this being real, and most of it was just filters. But no, this isn't the worst movie I've ever seen. In fact, cinematography-wise, it was one of the best. The camera work, even for the 80s, was amazing. Especially the wood scenes. They were extremely beautiful, and I would love to make a collage of just those. Overall, I would rate it 1 out of 5 and a 2 out of 10. I have no clue how it passed for a snuff film because it wasn't extremely graphic. In fact, if Needle wasn't included, then it wouldn't have been graphic at all. And I wouldn't have watched it again. Thank you, have a great day, and this has been the first episode of Let's Analyze This.